All right, guys, welcome back to the First Team Fantasy Podcast. Today we're going to be going over the Thursday night preview, and we have the Broncos going into Kansas City to play the Chiefs. I'm sure we all know the outcome of this one already. It's kind of funny. The Broncos have done a complete 180 on both sides of the ball this year, which is surprising to say the least. The over-under in this one is 47.5, so we're thinking it's going to be a fairly high-scoring affair, and the Chiefs are favored by 10.5. So tells you what you need to know. Right now, Denver's offense, they're scoring 24.2 points per game. That's 10th in the league right now. They're getting 224 passing yards per game. And to me, the Chiefs do have a good defense, but I really do like they're going to have to pass the ball. That goes without question. So I really do like Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy in this one. I mean, hell, if you have to flex Marvin Mims in a deeper league, I mean, I guess it's worth a shot because he is kind of the deep threat, and this might be one of the ones where he catches one of those 40-yard touchdowns. So other than that, Javonte Williams has been cleared to play tomorrow, but I don't necessarily know. I mean, if you got him, chances are you're probably starting him. It's really hard to even think about starting Jaleel or Samaje if Javonte is going to be playing, just due to the fact that when Javonte is in, he is going to get the majority of that volume. You know, Jaleel might get a few touches, and he might even score a touchdown on. We've seen him score a touchdown in a game where he did not have much work before. So it's possible, but just with the limited workload, it's not really something I think I could trust. And then you know that they don't, until Greg Dulcich is back, I don't trust Adam Troutman
No.
for anything, not even a stash spot, nothing. I guess Russell Wilson isn't the worst start this week if you're really desperate at the quarterback position, although I do like a lot of matchups more like, for example, Matt Stafford against Arizona, which we'll get into a little later. But, you know, Russ isn't the worst start. That's really all I got for this. Obviously, you're never going to start the Broncos defense, especially when they're playing the Chiefs. And yeah, I mean, if you got anything for that, Derek, otherwise we go.
I mean, you covered it well. You know, they're going to go down and they're going to have to pass the ball. So Cortland and Jeudy should have good games. Javonte's cleared to play if he does play. I mean, we've even seen when he was, fully healthy, still coming back from the injury, just the volume he's getting isn't a crazy amount, and I assume he might even get a little bit less than what we've seen in the first couple weeks. So it just muddles that backfield. Javonte's the only guy you'd really think about starting, but I think this is a week, if you can pivot from that, you should do so. Jaleel's looked crazy explosive, but last week they gave P. Ryan majority of the snaps. With Javonte back in this backfield, I mean, it's just P. Ryan or Jaleel, you can't roll. You just can't.
Yeah. And it's coming with the fear that this might become a three-headed monster, which in fantasy football is the thing that we absolutely despise. I mean, unless it's the Miami Dolphins, but this team isn't scoring like 30 points per game, so we're not getting as much production as we would if it were the Dolphins. So yeah, it's like Javonte, and then even Javonte's kind of a dice roll at this point.
Yeah. He might give you a single-digit week. I would not be surprised if he gives you a 7-point fantasy week. And I mean, it's just what to expect, especially coming off the hip injury. And I mean,
he's not really the pass catching back either.
No.
So it's like if they get down, he might get kind of relegated to right in the bench for the most of that game, especially given the quad injuries coming off of. I don't think they're going to just have him in there running routes. That will probably be McLaughlin and Samaje Perine, because that's why they picked up Perine. And we also did see Perine last week get like 70 receiving yards. So we know he is a threat in the passing game. And I think, honestly, I guess if you really want to take a chance this week, Samaje Perine, just due to that fact that they like having him out there on the passing downs, and they're going, it's kind of like how it was with Antonio Gibson last week. He played more of a receiver role out of the backfield than an actual, true running back role.
Yeah.
I think we might see some of that, but it's too hard to predict, especially going up against a really stout Chiefs defense. I just don't have much confidence in that running back room.
Yeah, and, talking about the Chiefs defense, So far, they're 13th against the pass, 11th against the rush. They've been a lot better than what we've seen from the Chiefs. And starting with Mahomes, I mean, he's currently the quarterback 6. He's broke 20 fantasy points 3 times. Mahomes is probably he's the most talented quarterback in the league. But just with how the Chiefs have game scripted and with the emergence of Pacheco on the ground and with the lack of receivers.
What do you mean? Brock Purdy's the most talented.
Yeah. No, exactly. Exactly. But you just haven't had to see Mahomes put up these 35, 40-point fantasy weeks. And honestly, I don't think we're going to see too many of them this year. So, I mean, Mahomes is obviously a must start. Isaiah Pacheco, the Broncos are last against the rush. I'm not going to say anything else. You start him.
No.
Travis Kelce is questionable with the ankle injury. He said he aims to play. If he does
Did
play,
he practice today?
He was limited in practice today.
Okay.
He aims to play. If he does play, no matter what capacity, you have to start Travis Kelce. It's Travis Kelce.
Yeah, I mean, we saw him come back out up fresh off of the injury after halftime last week and still have production. So,
yeah.
I mean, there's not really too many other people to throw the ball to.
No, so it's like if Travis Kelce plays, I don't like starting any of the Chiefs receivers. If you were going to think about one, it's Rashee Rice. The weird thing is Rashee Rice and Kadarius Toney are always projected the highest points out of that receiver room, but both of them don't play even 40% of snaps. The receivers that get the most snaps are actually Sky Moore, Justin Watson, and Valdez-Scantling. Exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of weird to see that because Rashee Rice obviously, even with those low percent of snaps, he has the highest upside, but that's just something scary when he's out there, 30 to 40% of the snaps. I mean, he does well with what he gets in that range, but, when we're talking about starting receivers, we're looking for at least 60, 65, and that's on the very low end. So, I mean,
yeah,
it's just a dice
I
roll.
don't prefer my receiver to need a touchdown to have a decent week.
Yeah.
And with the Chiefs receiver, you're not really going to have a decent week without a touchdown because no receiver in that room is going to get more than 5 catches on any given week.
Yeah. And then just the last thing, the Chiefs defense, if you're a team that's streamlining defenses, I am not completely against that. I mean, we saw Russ fumble for no reason and get taken back for a touchdown. I mean, they've just I don't know what he was even thinking on that play, but we've just seen the Broncos make plays where
play is just running in my head now.
He just threw the ball sideways and they just picked it up and ran it in. I mean, so if you want to streamline the Chiefs defense, it's only thing I don't like is unless you have a super stout defense, picking up a defense that plays on a Thursday is kind of weird. But again, the Chiefs, I wouldn't be surprised if their defense got double digits this week.
Yeah, the only thing that scares me about it is the Broncos have been scoring points on the back end a lot, which, it doesn't matter. The point differential in fantasy football for defenses, when they're up by so much, it's like they take out a lot of their starters, so on and so forth. And that's when you end up seeing, the defense did good like for 3.5 quarters. And then in that last part of the fourth quarter, when they pull all their starters, the Broncos get like a touchdown and a field goal, and the defense ends up with 6 points. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind.
Yeah.
But then you might get with that defensive line. Chris Jones is going crazy this year. You might end up getting the sacks and turnovers to kind of cover that. So.
And last thing I wanted to add, I believe, the Chiefs have forced a fumble and recovered a fumble in every single game this season. So, I mean, they're 16th in fantasy defense. Again, this week they are projected as the 5th highest scoring defense, and it's due, to the matchup. We'll see how it is, but, a defense I'm considering for sure.
Yeah, and it's like, just like how we say touchdowns aren't a sticky stat, I'd say the same thing with turnovers. However, with one in every single week, it shows that this defense is very aggressive and they go after the ball. And that is something that you want with your defense. If they're like ball hawks constantly, like the Cowboys defense, that's why we like them. Even in weeks, against the Niners, there's still a chance that they got steamrolled, but that's going to happen sometimes. You never know. So you at least want to give yourself the chance with an aggressive defense that's going to constantly be going for that ball. And then, after that, we're going to move into our starts and sits of the week. It's going to get a little spicy this week, guys. For my quarterback, I have Matt Stafford at Arizona. We've been seeing some pretty pedestrian numbers out of Matt Stafford. I don't think he's really top 20 yet, honestly, but this is probably going to be the week he does. It's Cooper Kupp's second week back. I mean, the offense looked pretty good against the Eagles, and we just saw the Joe Burrow revival against the Arizona Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
The Rams are playing at home, coming off of a loss. They're gonna be on 10. Going for, I think this is going to be a great game for Matt Stafford, for Cooper Kupp, for Puka Nacua. He's definitely. I'm rolling Matt Stafford if I got him this week. And then for my sit, CJ Stroud is coming off of a game against a tough defense in which we saw, they had a bit of a struggle kind of moving the ball and scoring points. Well, this week they're going against another pretty tough defense in the New Orleans Saints. Saints are actually currently the 4th ranked overall defense. They're only giving up 15.2 points per game.
It's going to be an ugly one.
It's going to be kind of similar to last week. Both of these offenses don't get me wrong. I like what the Houston offense has done in a lot of games this year. But just knowing that, the Saints defense, they've been good. They've been carrying that team so far because the offense hasn't been doing too much. So I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. It's going to be hard to really enjoy starting anybody on the Texans this week. I mean, I know they played the Patriots last week, but we saw them just absolutely shut down everything the Patriots had to offer. And it is a rookie quarterback. We'll see how it goes, but my sit of the week, I'm standing on it, CJ Stroud.
Yeah, and that'll go to my start of the week at quarterback, and it's going to be Justin Fields. He's finally showing consistency. He's had back-to-back weeks with 4 touchdowns, and he is going to play the Vikings, who are not very good against the pass. They average giving up 240 passing yards. You lose Justin Jefferson. Your offense, I can see being a lot more stagnant on that side of the ball, giving the Bears more opportunities. I like the Justin Fields, especially with DJ Moore and how he's been looking. I like Justin Fields this week. Sit of the week, like he said, it was going to get spicy, and I'm coming in hot right away. Justin Herbert against the Cowboys. And we touched on it when we talked about, Herbert played the Raiders. Division game, they can get ugly. And if Herbert didn't get into that end zone twice on the ground, this was an ugly game. He was 13 of 24. And you could just see losing Mike Williams. Quentin Johnston is still not ready to step up and play a major role, which is, honestly surprising on a high-powered offense like that. Josh Palmer is very solid, but putting him into a wide receiver 2 role, I kind of see it as you have Stephon Gilmore on Keenan Allen. That's a solid matchup. And then when losing Diggs, and it's Bland. I want to make sure I'm saying his last name right.
Yeah, DaRon Bland.
DaRon Bland. He's not that great, but honestly, neither's Josh Palmer. Josh Palmer is more relying on Justin Herbert's talent than his actual skill. He's a serviceable wide receiver, but after the struggles against Vegas, when Dallas just got steamrolled, and that Dallas defensive line is a lot better than Vegas's, I just see it.
They're going to be coming out pissed off. They just got disrespected.
Yeah.
So I don't see them giving up another 40 ball this week.
No.
It's
so
not in the cards.
Again, it's spicy. Dallas only gives up 168 yards through the air. They're still second in the league against the pass. We'll see how it plays out, but I got Herbert as my sit.
Yeah, and then with that, we'll move on to running backs. My start, it really does suck because Devon Achane was just lighting it up. The kid, what could you say about him that isn't good?
Yeah.
He's on IR now. And who was the running back 1 for the first 3 weeks? Raheem Mostert. That's my start of the week. Going up against Carolina. Their rush defense is horrible, as we've talked about. Their pass defense is on the better side. And I mean, while it's the Miami Dolphins, and I don't necessarily think that it's going to have too much effect how good the pass defense is, Raheem's going to have a lot of opportunity to score this week.
Oh, yeah.
And I think his running lanes, it's going to be a good week. I mean, we've seen a lot of success against Carolina on the ground so far. And, we got Jeff Wilson Jr. just coming off of IR. Their other two running backs are Chris Brooks and Salvon Ahmed. Not really too worried about either one of them. Jeff Wilson will probably get worked in, but the way we've seen with the Dolphins coming off of injury, they don't give them too heavy of a workload in their first week back. So I think this is the Raheem week. I think he might end up as the RB1 this week, in my honest opinion.
Oh, yeah.
He could very well. And my sit, as much as I hate to say it because I just traded for the guy, is Rachaad White. Going up against Detroit. Detroit has been stout against the run. We've seen it week in and week out. We just saw them absolutely. I mean, granted, it was against the Carolina Panthers, and Miles Sanders hasn't necessarily been too good, but good Lord, was that a horrible week.
Yeah.
And I think if Rachaad White can get some decent target volume in this one, it might save his week. But as far as actual rushing, I mean, he hasn't necessarily been the most efficient. And I don't think that's going to change this week against the Lions. I would feel comfortable sitting him if I had a better option. Obviously, with running backs, that's kind of hard to come by right now. But, some guys that I wouldn't mind starting over him. It's hard to say whether or not he's going to be healthy. But if Jahmyr Gibbs is going to play, I do like Jahmyr just because there's more potential upside just given the fact that the rush defense that they're playing. I mean, they're going up against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is the 6th, but I just like the Lions offense better, and he has that passing role. They've been rolling. But we'll see coming off of a bye. And Detroit is 3rd against the run. It's rough. It's going to be a tough day. I mean, I don't know if he'll eclipse 50 yards on the ground, honestly.
Yeah.
So it's just, if I'm starting him, it is with caution, but I would prefer to sit him if I had the choice this week.
Yeah, and then, going to my running back I'm starting of the week, it's James Cook. He's coming off a just terrible week. The Bills' offense wasn't awake for at least half the game.
They couldn't run the ball.
No, they couldn't run the ball. And the reason I am high on him this week is because they couldn't run the ball last week, and now they're playing a team that teams do nothing but run the ball successfully. The Giants are giving up 151 yards on the ground. This is another game, especially if it's Tyrod Taylor out there. The Bills are going to go up, and they're probably going to run the ball. And who better to force feed than your second-year running back that kind of needs that confidence back after a tough game? I really like the James Cook matchup. I'm not surprised if he gets in the end zone in this game, gets 15 carries, a couple looks through the air. I mean, it's just a super favorable matchup that you assume the Bills are going to go up in.
And I'd agree with you. I mean, some of the big production we've seen from James Cook has come at the end of these games. And it's kind of funny considering a lot of the time, when they get up, it's usually the backup running back. Like with the Niners, it's Jordan Mason. But the Bills rotate running backs so much that he still
gets
got
run.
Fresh legs by the end of the game when the defense is all dead. So that's when he goes for the 48-yard catch or the 60-yard run. I mean, I like it too. I love that start this week.
Yeah, and then, sticking on the trend for my sit list of big names, I got Derrick Henry against Baltimore. Derrick Henry's averaged less than 4 yards a carry in 3 out of the 5 games that he's played in. Baltimore's defense is giving up 91 yards a game total on the ground. And
only 15 points per game.
Yeah. This defense is just dominant. And I look at the Titans, and I'm like, if Derrick Henry's getting stuffed early, and then they try to go through the air,
you're going to go Tyson!
Yeah, I'm not surprised if I see 45 to 40% snap share Derrick Henry and a 50-plus snap share Tyjae Spears. We've seen it before. And I mean, it's just trended in that direction.
This could very well be the second week in a row that we see Tyjae Spears outscore Derrick Henry by a decent margin.
Yeah, no, it absolutely could. I see, they're another team. If the Titans go down early, it's not going to be much Derrick Henry if they're having to pass the ball. It's going to be all Tyjae Spears. So, I mean, it's just a scary matchup. It's just a tough matchup mainly. And I don't know how I feel about it.
It does sound crazy. If you haven't been paying that much attention, which, I mean, how can I blame you for not paying that much attention to the Tennessee Titans? But you would notice that, it doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound right that any guy's taking snaps from Derrick Henry, but that is the reality. That's why they drafted Tyjae Spears. That is the ability that he offers them. And, Derrick Henry's getting older. He doesn't have that same burst that Tyjae Spears has. And you saw that on Tyjae Spears' end around 19-yard touchdown last week. I mean, the kid's got burst. We know Derrick Henry's a big bruiser, but that's not what they need in every given situation. And this offense isn't that great. They're not elite at all. And they're going to be down a lot. They're going to be in positions where they need to pass. They're going to be behind, it's going to be 3rd and long. Quite a bit, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Moving on to the wide receivers. My wide receiver start of the week is the man Gabe Davis. We talked about that matchup with the New York Giants, their defense just has not really been that great. I mean, they got that 102-yard pick six against Tua last week. Miscommunication, ball bounced up in the air, whatever. The Giants may not have Daniel Jones. They may not have Saquon Barkley. Yeah. That means the defense is going to be on the field a lot. And, the Bills are coming off of a pretty devastating loss. They lost Matt Milano. They lost Tre'Davious White the week before. They're hurting right now. And to me, this is a get-right game. The Bills are probably going to absolutely destroy the Giants. And with that, Gabe Davis, we've seen he's reliable at this point. His worst game was 5 points? And I just don't really see that in the cards right now. I mean, he is obviously with Stephon Diggs there, you can't say he's the favorite end zone target, but good Lord, every game he seems to get targets in the end zone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I love it, especially with Josh Allen being the number 1 fantasy quarterback right now. It's hard to go away from the number 2 passing option on that offense. And Josh Allen's completing, he's got the highest completion percentage in the league right now. So everything is just clicking for him and Gabe Davis right now, him and Stephon Diggs. So, yeah, Gabe Davis is my wide receiver start of the week.
I like it. I like it a lot.
And then my sit, Scary Terry. It's just, you'd be surprised to see that right now, the leader in fantasy points for all pass catchers on the Washington Commanders is Curtis Samuel.
Yep.
And I don't know if that's just because Sam Howell is having a hard time, if it's due to the cornerback matchup. To me, the biggest thing is the way Curtis Samuel plays and the type of player he is really fits into Eric Bieniemy's play calling and his schemes. So maybe, while Terry is still the wide receiver 1 there, the targets and the production isn't necessarily showing that. This week, they will be going up against Atlanta. And what did we say about Atlanta? They have a good pass defense.
Oh, yeah.
It's very tough to pass against them. Right now, they are only giving up 190 passing yards per game. I don't necessarily, how many? 19.2 points per game. So they're not even giving up 20 points. It's just a tough start, especially with the Washington offense that has been very shaky. They're not consistent whatsoever. So I just don't necessarily know. This could be a game where Terry only gets 4 targets again. And it sucks because the game before we had just, his targets were going up. We saw him get 10. And then they play the Bears and everything just goes to hell. So coming off of that game, I just don't have much confidence in Terry. I'd want to give it a week. So I feel very comfortable sitting him this week.
Yeah, no, and I'd agree with that. Curtis, there's just been emergencies. Curtis Samuel, Logan Thomas, they do have other options there, and they've been using them. And this is another week. I'd 100% agree. I think it could be a very rough week for Scary Terry.
With a young quarterback, it's just a lot easier to throw to a guy out of the slot against the linebacker and the tight end against the linebacker. It's just going to be more open more often.
Yeah. And I mean, someone that should have endless opportunity against a not so good defense, Jordan Addison. They play the Chicago Bears in Chicago. The Bears are 31st against the pass. With the loss of Justin Jefferson, I mean, it's just open season for KJ Osborne and Jordan Addison. And Jordan Addison, out of the rookie receivers, has looked the most involved, to put it nicely. I mean, he was a threat with Justin Jefferson out there. He was getting good volume. You know, now the number one corner is either going to be on Addison or KJ Osborne, probably Addison, but we'll see. Again, it's the Bears. They are terrible on defense. The Vikings have not shown they can run the ball reliably. I assume they're going to attempt to this game without Justin Jefferson. They are going to try to get Madison Cam Akers involved. We'll see. But just the up spike in targets alone that Addison should be seeing against a Bears defense. I mean, if there was a game for him to explode, it's against a defense like this.
No, yeah, I'd agree. And I mean, Jordan Addison's probably going to be the number one option in this wide receiver room now for at least the next 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we could see. I mean, it's
see it
what
longer.
we talked. This is his opportunity, and he could take this and run with it. So you never know. I mean, Justin Jefferson. I think he's gonna either sign an extension or go somewhere else after this year. So this could very well be Jordan Addison's chance to become the solidified number one in that receiver room. And it starts this week.
Yeah. And then, I mean, talking about number one receivers, one that has had 2 rough weeks consecutively, Chris Olave. He will play the Texans in Houston. They're giving up 226 passing yards. They're not a crazy defense against the pass, but by no means are they slouches. And in the last 2 games, Chris Olave has 3 catches for 16 yards. He had a touchdown last week, which kind of salvaged his fantasy day, but when you're looking at 10.6 fantasy points combined in the past 2 weeks, it's just tough. And Derek Carr, you know, he's been dealing with that AC sprain in his shoulder. We assume it's getting healthier, but
it's going to be another Camaro week.
Oh yeah, and when you're playing through the injury, you know, you're taking hits while it's healing and everything. He's probably a guy.
Another Camaro week.
It's tough to throw Olave on the bench, but you know, if you have more formidable options, like I'm just saying, like, you know, Jordan Addison. It's crazy to say you'd bench Olave for Addison, but when you just look at the matchups, you look at how the past weeks, how things are trending. I mean, I don't mind.
So you had a bold take last week. It was, you know, what was it? Tyler Algier outscoring Matt Breida.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to turn it up a notch this week. I'm going to say Drake London outscores Chris Olave.
Okay.
That's
I don't
gonna
hate
be
that.
my take for this week. I think Drake London outscores Chris Olave. Drake London going up against Washington. Chris Olave against Houston. Again, got the injured quarterback. I think it could be in the cards.
I like it. I mean, you know, we'll see how it plays out.
And also with that, my tight end start of the week, another Atlanta Falcons pass catcher. We're going Kyle Pitts. Put him back on the board, man. We're going for it. I know it's nasty.
They had a good game.
Finally got a game with 10+ targets.
Mm-hmm.
Desmond Ridder heard us calling him the worst quarterback in the NFL, and he's like, "Nah, that's still Zach Wilson." So, I mean, we'll see. We just saw this Washington defense get torn to shreds by Justin Fields. Absolutely, like it wasn't even Emmanuel Forbes. Ooh, that boy's getting cooked so bad he had to delete his Twitter. Like. I don't know what to tell you. I think it's going to be a good game for this Atlanta Falcons offense. I mean, they're 30th right now against the pass.
Yeah.
So the Washington Commanders, let me make that clear. So, I mean, I don't know. I think this could be another big Kyle Pitts week. And then my sit, I feel like it's almost cherry picking due to the fact that Daniel Jones has the neck injury. And I mean, I don't feel too good saying it, but Darren Waller, I mean,
Yeah.
he himself, I just saw apparently he's now on the injury report. And I mean, he's coming off of a nice week, but when Daniel Jones gets hurt, I mean, if he plays, maybe because it's Tyrod Taylor, he ends up throwing it to the tight end a decent amount, but they're
Yeah.
playing the Bills. And I just don't really. I mean, Evan Ingram had been the most solid tight end, and he even got held to under 10 points.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see Darren Waller really having a big week this week. I really think he might end up with sub 5, which it really scares me. This matchup isn't one that I like at all.
No, I mean, I 100% agree. I mean, I'm going to stay on kind of the same trend. My start of the week is going to be Zach Ertz. He is going against the Rams in LA. They just lost James Conner to the IR. So your threats dwindle significantly. Is DeMercado or Keontae Ingram going to be viable options in the backfield? We don't know yet. Both of them are super unproven if they can be, solid running backs. And then you have Hollywood, you have Zach Ertz, you have Michael Wilson as the main receiving threats. The Rams are giving up 10.2 fantasy points to tight ends per game, which is the second highest in the NFL. And with James Conner being out, I would assume they're going to lean more to Zach Ertz. So we'll see how that one plays out. It's kind of crazy to say that 10.2 fantasy points to tight ends is the second highest. That just shows the landscape that tight ends are in. And then, I mean, on the other side, I have Dalton Schultz as my sit. He has back-to-back double-digit weeks. He's had, especially his pass game, his, most receptions, highest target. Like, he had a huge game. But he's going against the Saints, who give up 3.2 fantasy points per game right now. 3.2.
Yeah,
It's just, it's a tough week. It's one of those games. The Saints defense, as Schiff's mentioned before, they've held them in games. And
I mean, Pete Werner and Demario Davis are rock solid.
yeah,
I can't.
and this
I
is
can't
another
put-
game. The Saints could probably win this game like 19-14 or something like it can be an ugly game.
It might be 9-6.
Yeah, no, it very well could be. So I mean, just for that reason, we've seen Dalton Schultz have bad weeks, and honestly, if I had to bet, I'd say this is one of those weeks.
Yeah, I 100% agree. With that, we're just like some matchups that we really like or really don't like. The 49ers this week, it's hard to fade anybody on the 49ers, but they're going up against a Cleveland pass defense that's only giving up 125 pass yards per game. I think this could be a little weak for them. The Eagles pass catchers as well. They are going up against the New York Jets, who happen to be second against wide receivers. It's going to be tough for both. I mean, they're still like you have Brandon Ayuk, you have AJ Brown, you're still starting them. But I mean, with Ayuk, if you might have a better option, I might look at it. Again, these are guys that are hard to bench. Like for the most part, you're just starting them no matter what, just due to the talent. But the matchups have proved to be difficult for even top tier wide receivers. I mean, like I said, the Atlanta pass catchers going up against Washington, who just got absolutely torn apart. The Raiders pass catchers I really like because, good Lord, that Patriots defense is just decimated with the loss of Christian Gonzalez. I don't know when he's going to be back. They don't have Matt Judon.
Yeah.
So the pass rush isn't even going to be there. I mean, they just got beat 34-0 at home by the Saints. Granted, that score is going to look a lot worse when you throw a pick six and have multiple turnovers.
Chris Olave had 2 catches in that game for 12 yards. 34-0.
Yeah. To me, after that last game for Devontae Adams, I don't see them coming out and giving him any less than 10 targets, especially if he's going to be healthy in this game. I think Jacoby Myers, we already
Redemption
know
game.
that Derek Carr, I apologize. Stupid Jimmy G is willing to throw it to Jacoby Myers in quadruple or quintuple coverage. So he's going to throw him the ball. He's going to force feed him. It's hard to say coming off of that horrendous Butterfinger ass game against the Steelers, But the Ravens pass catchers are going up against the Tennessee pass defense that has been horrible.
Yeah.
Lamar has looked good, while we had an awful game from the pass catchers in the last game. Before that, they hadn't dropped the ball all year.
Yeah.
I think this should be a get-right game for them. I think Zay Flowers is going to have a great game. Mark Andrews should do well. Obviously, you could stop there. And yeah, there. If you have any others that you want to touch on,
only two, both running backs. Dameon Pierce against New Orleans. Dameon Pierce has gotten volume, but he has not been crazy efficient, and it's going to be an ugly one for the Texans offensively in this game. And then sticking to the trend, Breece Hall against the Eagles. Breece Hall just had a monster game. But, I said Kyron Williams was going to have a bad game against the Eagles. Their run defense, their defensive line is just so good. It's so dominant. I mean, I can just see it as one, if the Jets get down a lot early, why are you going to force feed Breece? I mean, you're just down. It could happen. We can see how much volume he really gets this game. But if this game gets out of hand early, I just don't see them,
While Breece has been much better these past 2 weeks, it is also still very much a reality what happened in the first three.
Mm-hmm.
If we saw what happens when they get down fast and big, they have no choice but to just throw the ball. And when they just throw the ball, it does not seem like wide receiver screens are a big part of their game plan, or wide receiver running back screens. I apologize. But it just makes it very hard knowing how good we saw them stifle Kyron Williams, who again hasn't necessarily been that efficient, but given a lot of big runs, neither has Breece Hall.
Yeah.
And you're still probably starting him, but these are just starts that I would kind of
watch out
hold
for
your breath a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, I mean, it's getting rough. There are a lot more injuries in week 6 than I want to say I ever remember having playing fantasy football, especially so many top tier players.
Yeah.
So again, you just got to keep paying attention, because with guys like Saquon Barkley, who their status is still up in the air and we won't know before game time, you got to be vigilant with that. Other than that, guys, just keep on rolling. Even if you're 1-4, 0-5, season ain't over yet. You just got to keep on going. But again, like we say every time, thank you for all the support. Thank you for tuning in, for subscribing and liking, and come back next time. Take more reps with the first team.
Yes, sir.